At this point, the orthodox and conservative scientist usually stops, drawing a line between organic and inorganic matter. But the daring minds of advanced scientists of today have brushed aside the dividing line and have moved to a position where they meet the Hindu philosophers and the occultists, and now admit and teach that life, mind, and mind power invade the inorganic world to its utmost limits, and that universe is indeed alive and possesses mind. Some of the lower forms of organic life, so-called, possess no organs and are but masses of jelly-like matter without signs of even rudimentary organs, and yet these life forms show evidences of desire, choice, and will. And science has admitted the existence of life and mind in the crystals, the latter growing in a manner showing vital and selective energy and even rudimentary sex. More than this, the metals and minerals under scientific tests have shown responses that are similar to the same action in organic life, showing life and rudimentary sensation, the latter, of course, being a manifestation of mind. Some of the cold, careful scientific records read like fairy tales to those not familiar with the wonderful achievements of recent science. I wish that I had the time and space to recount these tests, but I must hasten on. Enough to say that in mineral and metallic forms there has been found response, indicating the existence of sensation in varying degrees, and that in the crystallization of minerals and metals there has been evidenced the action of the same instinctive mental life energy which as appetency or instinct builds up the bodies of living organic forms. If you wonder at this, think of the miracle which is performed every second by plants, absorbing the minerals of the earth, which are then converted into living plant cells. Then we eat the plants and convert the plant cells into 6 animal cells which serve as the basis of our blood, muscles, organs, and even our brains. In fact, every particle of organic substance was evolved in this way. Think over this, and you will see that nature is one in her essence, and that she is alive and possesses mind power. But we do not stop even at this advanced point. Minerals and all forms of matter are composed of infinitesimal atoms, or particles. The particles combine by reason of some inherent attraction existing between certain of them, known as chemical affinity, etc. Chemical affinity is a peculiar thing. It manifests in likes and dislikes, loves and hates. It is impossible to study these manifestations without recognizing an elementary manifestation of like and dislike, love and hate. You think that this is far-fetched, do you? Well, listen to these words from some of the leading scientists about this power to receive sensations and power to respond to the same, and maybe you will change your mind. Haeckel, the great German scientist, holds that the atoms of which matter is composed may receive sensations and respond to sensations. He dwells upon this fact in his latest works, The Riddle of the Universe and The Wonders of Life, and writes as follows regarding sensation in the inorganic world. I cannot imagine, Haeckel says, the simplest chemical and physical process without attributing the movements of the material particles to unconscious sensation. He also says in another place, the idea of chemical affinity consists in the fact that the various chemical elements perceive the qualitative differences in other elements, experience pleasure or revulsion at contact with them, and execute specific movements on this ground. He adds later that the sensations and responses in plant and animal life are connected by a long series of evolutionary stages with the simpler forms of sensation that we find in the inorganic elements and that reveal themselves in chemical affinity. Nageli, another scientist, says, if the molecules possess something that is related, however distantly, to sensation, it must be comfortable to be able to follow their attractions and repulsions, uncomfortable when they are forced to do otherwise. And so you see that science now is preparing to admit elementary life and mind power in the atoms and particles of matter. But we have not as yet reached the utmost limit of scientific investigation regarding the presence of mind in the universe. Further than the 7 atoms, you may ask? Yes, further than the atoms. What is true regarding the atoms is true of the ions or electrons of which they are composed. These tinier particles are attracted and repelled, form groups and combinations which regulate the kind of atom produced, and manifest the same kind of affinity that is noticeable in the atoms. And more than this, these particles, as well as all forms of physical energy, are believed to emerge from the ether, that subtle, tenuous, universal substance which, although unseen and intangible, is held to exist in order to account for the phenomena of the universe. If there is mind in the particles that emerge from the ether, is it too much to claim that there must be mind in the ether itself? Is this preposterous? Not so. Listen to the words of the following scientific authorities on the subject. Flammarion says, "Mind gleams in every atom. There is mind in everything, not only in human and animal life, but in plants, in minerals, in space." Cope says, "The basis of life and mind lies back of the atoms, and may be found in the universal ether." Hemstreet says, "Mind in the ether is no more unnatural than mind in flesh and blood." Stockwell says, "The ether is coming to be apprehended as an immaterial, superphysical substance, filling all space, carrying in its infinite throbbing bosom the specks of aggregated dynamic force called worlds. It embodies the ultimate spiritual principle and represents the unity of those forces and energies from which spring, as their source, all phenomena, physical, mental, and spiritual, as they are known to man." Dahlhair says, "Possibly the ether may be the medium through which mind and matter react. Out of the ether could emerge, under proper circumstances, other phenomena, such as life, or mind, or whatever may be in the substratum." And so we have the best of authority to support the inevitable conclusion that there must be mind power even in the ether. For my own part, I go still further, and for several years back have been claiming that the ether and the universal mind power principle are one and the same thing. That is, that theoretical something that science has called the ether is in reality the universal mind power principle from which all manifestations of activities emerge, the universal mental dynamo. I cannot prove this, of course, but it is logical. But my argument does not depend even upon this, for admit that there is mind power in the ether, and my case is won. And in the ether it must be, even if the ether is not but another name for it. For if mind power is not in the eighth ether, from whence does it come into the particles of matter? And in matter itself, organic and inorganic? Resting the consideration for a moment, let me say that with mind as reason, intellect, etc., I have nothing to do in this book, for this is a consideration of the dynamic phase of mind, the power phase, mind power, or dynamic mentation. I am trying to show you that mind power exists everywhere and is manifest in every activity of the universe. In every activity of the universe, you say? Surely you do not include physical activity and energy, such as natural forces, etc. Yes, I do mean just that. How can that be, you ask? What has mind power to do with electricity, light, heat, magnetism, gravitation, etc.? It has everything to do with them, in my opinion. I will explain it to you in a few words, for I cannot go into this subject at length in this book, but must hasten on to the other parts of my subject. Here it is in a nutshell. All the forms of natural physical energy, or forces, known as light, heat, electricity, magnetism, etc., are held by science to be forms of energy arising from the vibration of the particles of matter. Now, what causes the vibration? Motion of the particles, of course. And what causes the particles to move? Just this: the attraction and repulsion existing between them. And what causes the particles to exhibit this attraction and repulsion toward each other? Now, here's where we get to the heart of the matter. Listen well. We have seen that the particles are attracted to or repelled by each other in the matter of likes and dislikes, love and hates, or pleasure or revulsion, or comfortable and uncomfortable experiences related, however distant, to sensation, etc. And these attractions and repulsions are held to result from capacity to experience sensations and the power to respond to sensations. And both the power to receive and experience sensations and to respond thereto are manifestations of mentality, which Haeckel has compared to desire and will. And if mentality is the cause of the sensations and of the response there, and the latter are the causes of the attractions and repulsions, and the latter are the causes of the motion to and fro of the particles of matter, and the latter in turn is the cause of the vibrations, and the vibrations are the causes of the manifestations of light, heat, electricity, magnetism, etc., then am I not justified in claiming that mind and mind power are the motive force of all physical energy? And am I not justified in postulating the existence of an universal mental dynamic principle? I tell you, friends, that the future will show that this dynamic mental principle is the source of energy, not energy, the source of mind. I know that this is revolutionary, but I believe that it will meet the requirements of the future. I have been preaching this thing for several years now, and many have been the smiles, the jeers, and the sneers. But from the beginning, I have felt a keen appreciation of the words of Galvini when he said bitterly, "I am attacked by two very opposite sects. The scientists and the know-nothings both laugh at me, calling me the frog's dancing master, but I know that I have discovered one of the greatest forces in nature." And now, in conclusion, I must ask you to form a mental picture of this great universal dynamic mental principle, pervading all space, immanent in all things, and manifesting in an infinite variety of forms, degrees, and phases. We can think of it only by means of symbols. Let us then consider it as a great living, throbbing, pulsating, mentating ocean of dynamic mind power. In the depths of that ocean of mind power, there is quiet and calm and peace, the embodiment of latent power and potential energy. On its surface are ripples, waves, great movements of energy, currents, whirlpools, eddies, phases of fierce tempest alternating with phases of calm and quiet. And from the depths of that ocean of mind power, all mental and physical power emerges, and to its bosom all must return. And in that ocean, there is an infinite store of energy from which may be drawn that which the human centers of consciousness and power require when they learn the secret. This ocean of mind power is our only source of dynamic energy, but we have at our disposal as much of its force as we can carry off over our channels of supply. It is the use of this power that we call dynamic mentation. Now, do you understand what I mean by the universal principle of dynamic mind power, this universal mental dynamo? Several years ago, I told a friend of this conception, and after he had listened to me attentively and with interest, he reflected a few moments and then suddenly asked, "But where do I come in?" And that is the question that many of you are asking now, no doubt. Well, while here I cannot dip into metaphysics or philosophical speculation, or even into my favorite occult sources, I will say that each of you is a center of power in that ocean of dynamic mind power, and each eye is a master of the power. You have the whole thing back of you, and you are free to draw upon it for all that your channel will carry to you. And you are allowed to enlarge your channel. That is enough for this time. More will follow as we proceed.